Hello everyone, welcome to our next lesson. Today we are looking at mental math and division. So this is going to be a little bit longer lesson today, but if you understand how to do mental math, then it will make a lot of your math work easier as you move forward in your education. So in this lesson, we will use mental math to divide multiples of 10 by single-digit divisors and use the distributive property to perform mental math division. So let's start by dividing these blocks into two equal sets. We have 6 blocks, so if we divide them into two equal sets, we're going to divide them into two groups of 3. So what is a division equation that we could write for this diagram? Well, we started out with 6 blocks. We divided them into two equal sets. That's what it says down here. Number of sets is 2. And we got 3 things in each set. How about this one? If we divide these blocks into two equal sets, how many blocks do we have to start with? Let's count. So if we have 12 blocks altogether, we want to divide them into two equal sets. Well, we have 2 rows. So that makes it pretty easy to draw a straight line down there, although that's not so straight, and divide it into two groups, right? Or two equal sets. So we started with 12. How many sets did we divide into? 2. And we've got 6 in each set. 6 in the top row and 6 in the second row. All right, looking at these equations, what is the difference between these equations? Here we have 6 divided by 2 equals 3. 60 divided by 2 equals 30. And 600 divided by 2 equals 300. What did we change in the second and third equation to make it different from the top one? Yeah, we just added zeros onto it, right? So how can we tell what the number of zeros will be in an answer? If we have 1 0 on this side, we will have 1 0 on this side. But notice that's if the divisor stays the same. It's only if it follows this pattern. How can we find the non-zero numbers in the quotient? So the non-zero numbers, or whatever number is not 0, the 6, the 2, and the 3. That's what we're looking at when we're looking at mental math. Could we just take off these zeros, take off the 2 zeros here and the 2 zeros here? That gives us 6 divided by 2 equals 3. Put the zeros back on, 600 divided by 2 equals 300. And we haven't really changed the value of anything as long as we keep the number of zeros in the question and the answer the same. So let's practice some examples. If we know that 8 divided by 2 equals 4, then we can find out that 80 divided by 2 will be 4 with a 0 on the end, because we have 1 0 here and 1 0 in the quotient. So then if we have 800 as our dividend, we're keeping 2 as our divisor. 8 divided by 2 is 4, and we can put 2 zeros on the end. Do you see how that makes it easier to use bigger numbers? 12 divided by 3, well, that answer is also 4. If we put a 0 on the end of 12, we can put a 0 on the end of whatever answer is here. And 12 divided by 3 is 40. Which means that 1200 divided by 3, you've probably already guessed it, 400. How about 6 divided by 3? We know that's 2. So 60, an extra 0 there, is 2 with that extra 0 on the end. And 600, 2 zeros here. We can put the 2 zeros down because we know that that's what we'll have at the end. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. If you want to pause the video and check this one, see if you can do it ahead of me, that would be great. Then you'll really know that you know what you're doing. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So 140 divided by 2, we can automatically know is 70. And 1,400 divided by 2 will be 700. So here's a very important thing to remember. Remember that columns go up and down. and rows go from side to side. Think of it as columns are what will hold up a roof, and rows are the way that we put chairs. So these are supposed to be chairs in rows, like in a church or in a theater or an auditorium or something. Okay, so columns are always up and down. Notice how the roof makes a point there showing up, and rows always go side to side. So how many dots are there all together in this picture? Well, let's count by threes, and we'll count the rows that there are. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So there's 15 dots all together. What is the number of rows? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. What division equation can we use to find the number of columns? Now, obviously, you can see right away how many columns there are. But if we had more columns, if the numbers were larger, what could we use? 15 dots divided into 5 rows gives us 3 columns. Now, looking at this one, let's write a division equation here to help us find the missing number. So the missing number is shown by a question mark in each of these. So let's count the total number of dots or squares first. Here we have 18 dots. They're divided into 3 rows. So how many columns do we have? It'll be 6. And yes, you could just count them. But if somebody was given that to you orally, if you were supposed to figure out how many columns you needed for all of these chairs or whatever things they were, then you'd have to be able to do that in your head. In B, here we have 24 squares, and we're going to divide them into rows of 4. So if you were setting up for a small presentation, you had 24 chairs, you wanted to put them into 4 rows, how many chairs would you tell people to put into each row? 6. All right, for C, how many squares do we have here? We've got 30 squares divided into 5 rows equals, how many columns do we have? 6. Now, another way to do mental math is by dividing one digit at a time. So if we look at 68 divided by 2, some people look at that and think, oh, 68 is a huge number. How on earth can I divide that by 2? You think, oh, I have to do this, put it inside of here, and all the rest of it. But when we actually analyze the number, you can see that 68 is an even number. 6 is an even number, and 8 is an even number. So we can easily divide those by 2. Looking at what is 6 divided by 2? 3. And what is 8 divided by 2? 4. So if we have 60 divided by 2, then we know from what we did earlier, then that would be 30. Because the 6 here actually represents 60, but we can think of it as just 6 because we keep in mind the place value. We will put the 3 in the 10 spot for 30 and the 4 in the 1 spot. So that makes it easy. That way we don't have to go through all of this work to get the answer for it. So before you try doing long division or even short division, make sure you analyze the numbers and see if there's a way you can do it mentally before you even work on the long division. So if you can do that one, then I'll bet you can do this one. Pause the video for a minute and try it. 6 divided by 2 will be 3. 8 divided by 2 will be 4. 2 divided by 2 will be 1. And they automatically fall into the right place value there because that's where you've written them. Okay, let's try these ones, dividing one digit at a time. 36 divided by 3. Let's start with the tens. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So our answer is 12. In B, we've got 9 divided by 3 is 3. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 32 is our answer. C, we've got 363. 300 divided by 3 will be 100. 60 divided by 3 will be 20. And 3 divided by 3 will be 1. In D, we have 900 divided by 3 will be 300. 60 divided by 3 will be 2, or 20. 3 divided by 3 will be 1. 48 divided by 2 Let's take 40 divided by 2 will be 2, or 20, and 8 divided by 2 will be 4. And then if we have 82 divided by 2, 80 divided by 2 will be 4, and 2 divided by 2 will be 1. So I hope you're seeing how we can quickly get those answers without going through all the work of drawing out the division question. Just a little bonus here. Again, you can pause the video if you'd like and try these ones. I'm not going to talk it through, I'm just going to write down the answer for these. Now, here's another way that we can do mental math. We can perform mental math by halving repeatedly. Remember, if we half something, then we're dividing it by 2. So this works when we have questions that we're dividing by 4. So if we take 60 divided by 4, we think, oh, well, this isn't going to work because 6 divided by 4, we can't do that. But we know that if we split 4 apart, 4 is 2 times 2. So what if we took half of 60, or 60 divided by 2? Then we'd get 30. And then if we take 30, finding half of 30, or 30 divided by 2, this might take a little bit more time to remember, but 30 divided by 2 is 15. So 60 divided by 4 will be 15. And let's work it out the long way, just to make sure that it's correct. 6 divided by 4 would be 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. Bring down the 0. 20 divided by 4 is 5. 5 times 4 is 20. And 20 minus 20 is 0. So there is our answer. 60 divided by 4 is 15. So this method actually works, but this is only for when we're dividing by 4. So looking at this, if we divide by 4 by halving twice, half of 80 would be 40, and half of 40 would be 20. So 80 divided by 4 is 20. Then we can check that too, because 8 can be divided by 4, and then put the 0 on the end. How about 100 divided by 4? Half of 100 is 50. Half of 50 is 25. And if you have trouble remembering that, think about counting quarters. When you count quarters, it's 25, 50, 75, 100. So that's another way to know exactly what 100 divided by 4 is, because it takes 4 quarters to make 100 cents, or $1. 120 divided by 4? Well, 120 divided by 2 is 60, and 60 divided by 2 is 30. And we can use the first strategy to check this too, because we know that 12 divided by 4 is 3, and then we just have to add the 0 on the end. 160 divided by 4? Well, half of 160 is 80. Half of 80 is 40. And we know that 4 times 4 is 16. Put the 0 on the end, and we have 160. Here is a question that you might come up with that is a little bit more complicated. So the question is, I want to find the dimensions, that means the side measurements, the dimensions of an array containing 75 squares. I know that it has 3 rows. So we know that we have 75 things in total in the array, and there are 3 rows. So going this way, there's 3 rows. But what will the number be over here? To do this mentally, let's break 75 into 2 numbers that are easier to divide. We have a hint here at the bottom. One of the numbers should be a multiple of 10 that we know is divisible by 3. So if we think about this from 75, well, 70 doesn't really work because 70 isn't easily divisible by 3. What about 60? If we took 60, and then it would take 15 more to get to 75, we could say that 75 is the same as 60 plus 15. And 60 and 15 are easier to divide by 3 than 75 is. So let's see how this works through. So now on this slide, we can see that they've taken the number of columns of the entire rectangle. That's what we're looking for, right? How many columns there are here. And they've just broken the total number into the 2 different parts, the 60 and the 15. So we have here the number of columns of the large rectangle and the number of columns in the smaller rectangle will equal the number of columns in the entire rectangle. So let's go ahead and figure this out. If we have 60 in the large rectangle in total, 60 things, we know that 6 divided by 3 is 2, and because there's a 0 in the question here, we can put a 0 in the answer. So 60 divided by 3 will be 20. And we're going to add that to the 15 divided by 3. And we know 15 divided by 3 is 5. So this says 75 divided by 3 will equal 25. And we can check that again by doing the division to make sure that we've got it right. 75 divided by 3, 7 divided by 3 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 3 times 5 is 15, which leaves us with a 0 at the bottom. So you can see it gives us the right answer. And you might be able to see in here where we even get the 60 and the 15 from. On this slide, we will use a multiple of 10, 20, 30, or 40, or so on to break down the dividend. Remember, the dividend is the number that we are dividing, and perform the division using mental math. So 70 divided by 5. Well, if we're dividing by 5, I know that 50 is easy to divide by 5. And if I take 50 out of 70, then it leaves me with 20. So 50 plus 20 divided by 5 sounds easier to do. So 50 divided by 5 plus 20 divided by 5. And that will equal 50 divided by 5 is 10, plus 20 divided by 5 is 4, and we end up with 14. So 70 divided by 5 is 14. If you counted by 5s 14 times, you would reach 70. Let's look at this one, 68 divided by 4. Well, we know we can do 6 divided by 4, but how about 60 divided by 4? Can we do that one? Maybe we can break that down. Instead of 60, what if we said 40? 40 plus what would be 60? 20. And we can't forget the 8 in there too. Divide those all by 4. Let's see what we get. 40 divided by 4 plus 20 divided by 4 plus 8 divided by 4. Let's work those through. 40 divided by 4 is 10. 20 divided by 4 is 5. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 10 plus 5 is 15, plus 2 more is 17. That's a lot easier than working through the whole division question, isn't it? Well, how about 87 divided by 3? That looks a lot more complicated, doesn't it? Well, let's take out 60. 60 is a pretty big number, pretty close to 87. 60 plus what would be 87? Aha, 27. And 27 can be divided by 3, right? That would make it easier. Divide that by 3. We'll end up with 60 divided by 3 plus 27 divided by 3. 60 divided by 3 will be 20, and 27 divided by 3 will be 9. So we'll end up with an answer of 29. And you can always check these using the division and make sure that you've got them right as well. All right, so now with those strategies in mind, you should be able to finish pages 85 to 87 in your practice book. And as always, contact me if you have any questions or if you're unsure about what strategy to use or how to use the strategy, and I'd love to help you. See you next time.